Good afternoon, everyone. I have us at just past 30 minutes. So why don't we go ahead and get started? My name is Chris Sun. I'm the project manager for the Justice Reinvestment Initiative's Training and Technical Assistance team. Thank you all for taking a moment to check in both with the Bureau of Justice Assistance as well as our Training and Technical Assistance team. The goals of today's webinar are really just to give you an overview of the award that you've just received from BJA, as well as the kinds of supports that are available to you through BJA and our TTA team. We're also planning to have some discussions around grants management from the BJA team so that you have an understanding of some of the expectations for managing your award. So before we get started, a couple housekeeping things. One, this webinar is being recorded so that you can refer to it again at a later point. We'll provide you a link to the recording. Also, I'm going to hand it over to one of our team members, Jessica, to go over some of the logistics of running the webinar. So Jessica.
Thanks, Chris. Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Dockstader, and I'm an analyst working with CNA and BJA's Justice Reinvestment Initiative. As Chris said, I'd just like to go over a few helpful tips as we begin today's session. Please keep your phones or computer audio on mute to avoid any background noise. If you'd like to ask a question of any of the panelists, please use the chat function and direct your question to the host. You can send a question at any time throughout the session. To access the chat function, if you're using your computer, the chat function is located at the bottom center of your screen. If you're using your mobile device, your chat function is located in the top right corner of your screen. If you can please edit your display name by hovering over your name, clicking More, choosing the rename option, and changing your screen name to reflect your full name, title, and agency. This will help us to ensure that we mark you down for your grant requirement. And thank you. Please reach out to the chat function or email us at JRI TTA@cna.org if you have any questions throughout the session or throughout the webinar. Thanks, Chris.
Great. Thank you, Jessica. So with that, just a brief overview of the agenda today. I spoke about it in broad terms. We're going to first start out with some discussions from BJA on the JRI, as well as the roles and supports of each of the pieces of our team and the BJA team that'll be supporting your award. Our director, Dr. Laura Kennard, is going to talk a little bit about training and technical assistance, and then the BJA team will again talk about grants management. So with that, I will hand it over to Dr. Brushett for the JRI overview.
Thank you so much, Chris, and welcome everyone on behalf of BJA, and a hearty congratulations on your award. We're so excited to have you all joining the JRI site-based fold, and we look forward to learning more over the coming months about your sites, your site teams, as well as watching your projects unfold. So as Chris mentioned, I'm just going to spend a little bit of time talking about the JRI process and goals, introducing you to the other sites who won awards this cycle, as well as starting off the conversation about roles and responsibilities on the team that will be supporting you. So starting with the JRI approach, this should look familiar to you as it was all outlined in the solicitation that you responded to. So the Justice Reinvestment Initiative, or JRI, is a process. It's an intensive data-driven approach that helps states, local jurisdictions, and tribes identify the drivers of crime and understand how they can use resources to address those issues. So the resulting information allows stakeholders to improve their capacity to prevent and respond to crime by knowing how to best reallocate their resources into high-performing crime and recidivism reducing efforts. Just a quick reminder, folks, if you don't mind putting your phone on mute, I'm hearing a little bit of feedback there. But you might have primarily heard about JRI from the lens of state-based efforts. Many of you may have participated in state-level efforts in your respective states. But please don't forget that JRI is an approach that has been and continues to be applied at the local level. So the focus of the projects in this cohort is on state, local, and tribal governments who want to use the JRI approach to reduce violent crime and address the high costs to their criminal justice systems. There are three central goals to keep in mind when you think about JRI. The first is identifying and responding to high-cost public safety problems or the impediments to responding to those issues. The second is exploring and implementing innovative strategies to improve outcomes and saving costs. And the third is reinvesting those cost savings into strategies that can further decrease crime and reduce recidivism. And there are 5 key elements. So how do you do that? There are 5 key elements to the JRI process or the JRI approach. So this is essentially the roadmap to how you and your jurisdiction will accomplish the goals listed on the preceding slides. So much of this work you'll have already done in scoping out your solicitation response, but we expect you all to be continuing on this work as you move through implementing your projects. And the first is engage stakeholders. So your project team will include all agencies and individuals necessary to understand and address the problem. You'll analyze data and identify drivers. So using data, you'll determine the causes, symptoms, and scope of the problem, as well as any impediments to addressing it. The lead agency, as well as any other stakeholders, will be responsible for providing that data. You'll develop an innovative or research-based response. So you'll devise strategies and activities that specifically address the root causes of the problem or address those impediments at the root cause. We'll want you to document those activities, including the parties responsible, timelines, and secure that buy-in that you'll need from stakeholders. In step 4, you'll implement, sounds easy enough, implement those innovative responses. Your project team will enact strategies and activities according to the plan, make course corrections as needed in order to get to your desired outcome. And the last step is measuring outcomes. So your project team will assess the effectiveness of what you implemented and the activities that you undertook. You'll document how well it worked, what didn't work, and how you can support yourselves with sustainability, future funding requests, and to inform replication. We're so excited this year. We were able to compete and make awards in 3 categories for jurisdictions to apply the justice reinvestment approach to local problems. So the first category, as you may recall from the solicitation, is on improving court processing and efficient docket management. The second category is improving and implementing pretrial systems. And the third is innovative approaches to improve the efficacy of state, local, and tribal justice systems. We had a very strong batch of applications, and we ultimately selected 11 awardees across those categories. Awardees are listed on this slide and the following slide by category in alphabetical order. I think this is just really great to see the breadth of the agencies that we provided awards to, as well as the geographic distribution. So we have 1 award in category 1, 3 awards in category 2, and the remainder are in category 3. And as a note, just for context, this is the second cohort of awards that we've made. So please be prepared. Your TA team is going to be working fairly tirelessly to identify common themes across projects in the 2020 cohort, as well as in the 2019 cohort, to get you matched up for some learning across sites where those commonalities might exist. I'm going to transition now to talk about the supports that are going to be available to you as a grantee under this program. I think it's super helpful to know who the team is and what you can expect in the months to come. So this is a little bit of an overwhelming roadmap on what to expect in the coming years from your award. I know we have some first-time grantees in the cohort, some returning BJA grantees, so it's helpful to see what BJA expects for your award as it unfolds over the next 3 years. So as a new 2020 grantee, you're at the very beginning of year 1, in that you've been notified of your award. You may or may not have been able to accept it yet due to Just Grants and are in the stages of budget approval. So that's all exactly where we would expect you to be at this point in time. As you can see, there are many touch points to come. In addition to this introductory webinar, if you haven't already scheduled it, the next step is going to be your introductory site kickoff call with CNA and folks from the BJA team, and working to get your budget cleared with your program's lead. So once your budgets are cleared, you'll be moving forward with your TA coach, working on your action plan, and then implementing your grant project. Along the way, we expect that you'll need to submit modifications to your budget, potentially to your scope, via a GAM or the GAM process, which programs will tell us a little bit more about in a few slides. We also expect that you'll be continuing with your federal reporting. There'll also be workshops, webinars, and other TA activities to help you and others in the cohort. So this is going to continue through the coming years. In year 3, you'll see there's a little bit of a shift to focusing on sustainability and planning for a closeout. But as of now, we just ask that you keep moving forward with the beginning steps of getting your award off the ground. So through the life of your award, there are 3 key groups that you'll be interacting with throughout. So this is beyond your individual JRI project team and stakeholders. And I think it's useful to think of these as 3 components of your support wheel. So the first is the BJA Policy Office. We also have the BJA Programs Office, and then of course your BJA-funded training and technical assistance provider. We all work collaboratively in different roles to help you succeed. The BJA Policy Office is the first entity. That's the office that I work within here at BJA. The Policy Office generally is focused on designing programs and solicitations that comply with federal law and further the administration of justice through grants, training, and technical assistance. We have a national level presence working with other organizations to disseminate lessons learned, best practices, etc. But the bread and butter of what we do is manage grant awards to essentially ensure that you're staying on track and achieving the goals that we set out in the solicitation and that you proposed in your application. This is me. Hello. I, like most other senior policy advisors in BJA, manage projects across multiple portfolios. So for example, I also work on Second Chance Act as well as COSAP. But this slide details specifically the role that I fill as a senior policy advisor on these specific JRI site-based awards. I won't walk through the list. I'll let you kind of read through that at your leisure. But do know that most of the work that I'm doing on this portfolio is to make sure that you all are being supported by BJA staff and TA to accomplish your goals. And we're also working tirelessly to ensure that BJA leadership, the field, appropriators, et cetera, all know about the good work that you're doing or are going to be doing in your local communities. And the last thing I want to say about BJA policy is when you think about the policy office, please think of us as a collaborator and a thought partner. So while we certainly have a vested interest in you all executing the projects that you scoped out, we aren't here to catch you out if you deviate or to make your lives difficult. We're really here to help you achieve your goals. We know circumstances change, projects get delayed and derailed, and that's all perfectly acceptable. BJA is your partner, along with the TA provider, to think about how to overcome those challenges. So if you're having issues, please do speak up early and often so we can all work together to get where you want to go, which is a successful project and better outcomes for your communities. My email is on the slide, so please don't hesitate to reach out to me anytime you have any issues or concerns. I might not be able to solve all of your problems, but our collective JRI team is here and will be able to work with you to get all of them solved. I'm now going to hand it over to Kate Mealy from BJA Programs to tell you a little bit more about their office's role in the support wheel. Kate? Kate, you might be on mute. I'm not hearing you.
It's that double mute thing. I apologize. So sorry about that. Thanks, Rachel. As Rachel mentioned, I'm Kate Mealy, and I serve as one of the division chiefs in the programs office. I'm the division chief for the North Mid-Atlantic Division and Strategic Initiatives. And within those strategic initiatives, the Justice Reinvestment Program, this program, is one of those that's within my portfolio. So we'll go into your team in a few slides, but first we're going to cover the programs office responsibilities. So the programs office at BJA, we oversee the day-to-day management of grant awards and will be your primary contact for grants management, basically the stuff that keeps you out of jail. Our programs office staff are committed to providing our customers, which include you as the grantee, with the highest level of service and support. The programs office staff develop and maintain mutual and professional relationships with all of our customers and are expected to provide prompt, courteous, and well-informed responses. Our customers include grant applicants and recipients, such as yourselves, local, state, and federal agencies and organizations, Indian tribes, the Office of Justice Programs as a whole, or OJP, and the general public. So next, let's talk about the role of the program's office state policy advisors. So your state policy advisor, who's assigned to you, serves as the main contact for JRI grant administration at BJA. They're responsible for maintaining regular communication with you, specifically ensuring that that's the grant award administrator, or at least that person is copied, providing assistance and advice to recipients on programmatic, administrative, and financial requirements, overseeing project spending and drawdowns to track implementation progress, executing administrative actions and approving changes to grant activities or budget, as Rachel mentioned, reviewing and approving all semi-annual progress reports, reviewing federal financial reports, or as we refer to them, FFRs, to track spending with project implementation, as well as conducting monitoring, which is required by federal law. So to sum it up, anything and everything going on with your grant, your state policy advisor needs to be involved. So next, we're going to go into the JRI team. So your JRI awards are assigned to 2 state policy advisors, Leslie Walker or Latanza Wilson. If you are in California, Leslie is your state policy advisor, and all other JRI awards are assigned to Latanza Wilson. If you have not been in contact with your state policy advisor yet, please take a moment to reach out. Their emails are on the screen. And they can also be found in Just Grants where your award is. And also always feel free to reach out to me as the division chief. So again, I oversee one of many of the programs within my portfolio. So now I'm going to hand it over to Laura from CNA to talk about technical assistance. Laura?
Great, thank you so much, Kate. So as you see, moving back into our diagram here, the last piece of the support wheel is training and technical assistance. So CNA is your TTA provider, and we act as the front line eyes and ears for BJA. So we are going to be there with you, sort of working the implementation of your project day in and day out to help you identify and address all of your needs and support you throughout the process. One of the ways we will do that is to get you connected with subject matter experts and just generally help you advance the field and identify best practices. So I will take 1 minute here to introduce myself. I am Laura Kennard. I'm a senior research scientist at CNA, and I serve as the project director for the JRI TTA effort. And my counterpart in this effort is Christopher Sun. You met him just at the very top of the webinar today. Our email addresses are on the screen, so please feel free to reach out to us at any time if you have questions about TA. We are always here to support you. So Chris, could you skip forward to a couple more slides here? Maybe the next one. Yes, thank you. So I'll tell you a little bit more about our TTA approach. So above all, our approach to training and technical assistance to support the JRI sites is flexible. We will work with you to identify what your TTA needs might be and how we will be able to meet those needs. So like BJA and like Rachel mentioned a little bit ago, we invite you to think of us as your collaborator and as a thought partner in this process. So our approach to TTA is relationship-based, non-directive, and we are very much success and outcome oriented. So there's no idea, some of you have heard me say on calls earlier, there's no idea too big, no idea too small when it comes to technical assistance. Whatever is going to help your program implementation run smoothly, that's what we're here to provide for you. So requesting TTA is simple. You will request TTA through the team that is assigned to work with you. That will be communicating with you regularly, and that will be a TTA coach and an analyst. And those people will be assigned to you shortly in the new year, and you will get to know them very well as you sort of go through your project implementation. And as the slide notes here, just contact us directly to request TTA and sort of bounce some ideas around. And we will do our best to make sure that we come up with the creative solutions that best support you. Next, I'll talk a little bit about the process and what we have coming up. So now that you are all on board, welcome to all of you again. We're excited that you're here and excited to be working with you. And we know that you are working through your Just Grants processes, and we'll get a little bit more information on that in a few minutes. But the next big milestone in the JRI TTA process is looking toward the development of your action plans. So we look forward to supporting you in that process early in the new year. And this is sort of your first opportunity to work really closely with your coach and your analyst as you develop your action plan. We will provide some ongoing TTA as you need it throughout the process. But the first big step is developing that action plan. And next slide, we'll get into a couple of details here about what is in the action plan and what we expect of you. So we will be sending out shortly a template for the action plan that sort of hits on these key components. And many of these key components will come right from your original proposal, but obviously putting pen to paper on an action plan gives you the opportunity to make any refinements or tweaks to timelines or partnerships or anything that has come up due to COVID-19 that might be necessary. So the key components of the action plan are the description of your problem, your program and research model, TTA needs, if you can anticipate them at that time after you've had some time to think through the operationalization of your project. Any updates that have occurred since you submitted your proposal, again, understanding and noting impacts of COVID-19 and how those may have affected your project. We will encourage you to think critically about sustainability of your projects. And then of course, to sort of revisit your timeline and nail that down, timeline of planned activities for implementation. So moving into just the first steps of working with your TTA team. Again, your team will be assigned to you shortly, probably early in the new year. You will be assigned a coach and an analyst. And we encourage you to jump on the phone with them quickly and get into that rhythm of monthly update calls or bi-weekly update calls, whatever works best for you. And then to sort of jump into the action plan development process and submission. So this is definitely a document that we want you to bounce around a little bit back and forth and work collaboratively with your TTA team before it sort of goes to BJA for submission and ultimately for approval. We also encourage you throughout the entire project here to think about TTA and what your needs might be. Your coach and your TTA team may also come up with some recommendations for you that they see, you know, to enhance some of the things that you're doing. As Rachel also noted before, part of our job is to keep this bird's eye view on all of the grantees and see where there are commonalities and where you might be learning from each other. So that's another thing that we will be facilitating with. So at this point, I'm going to hand it off to Latanza Wilson, and she's going to dig into the details of the grants management. Latanza?
Thanks so much, Laura. Now let's move into the grants management section of your federal award. The BJA Program's State Policy Advisor, or SPA, assigned to your award will work with you to ensure compliance with the administrative, programmatic, and financial requirements that come with being a recipient of federal funds. These requirements are imposed by authorizing statute, appropriations language, regulations, DOJ policies, 2 CFR 200, and the DOJ Financial Guide. Each federal agency has their own policies, procedures, and requirements for grant recipients. What may be allowed or standard practice at other federal agencies is likely not the same at the Department of Justice or DOJ. When in doubt, talk to your assigned SPA. You're in the post-award stage of the grant's life cycle. The post-award stage refers to the entire time you have an active award, typically 3 years, and up to the point of closeout. We are going to cover a lot of information in the next few slides. So as a reminder, this is not a comprehensive or exhaustive training. Rather, we're highlighting some of the most important topics you need to know to effectively manage your grant, as well as identify any speed bumps you may encounter over the next 3 years. We will cover the following topics: award acceptance, award conditions, budget and financial information, accessing funds, grant award modifications, mandatory reporting requirements, monitoring, and award closeout. By this point, all of you should have accessed the DOJ's online grant system, Justice Grants or Just Grants. Your authorized representative, typically the chief executive of the recipient organization, must accept the award in Just Grants. The award document is a legally binding contract with the federal government that must be accepted by the authorized representative. Award conditions may be attached to an award for financial and/or programmatic issues requiring resolution, referred to as withholding conditions. There may also be program-specific award conditions based on the individual needs, goals, and objectives of each funded project. Please note that even if an award is accepted, you cannot begin project activities, obligate, expend, or draw down funds until you have a cleared budget and all withholding conditions have been resolved. Moving right along to award conditions. All awards made by the Office of Justice Programs, or OJP, include a number of general terms and conditions applicable across OJP programs. Typically, awards will also include additional award conditions that relate to the particular statute, program, or solicitation under which the award is made, to the substance of the funded application, to the recipient's performance under other federal awards, to the recipient's legal status, or to other pertinent considerations. All awards include standard terms and conditions concerning compliance with DOJ grants financial guide, use of federal funds, audit requirements, the Anti-Lobbying Act, civil rights, Equal Employment Opportunity Plan, or EEOP, and reporting potential fraud, waste, and abuse. Grantees are responsible for adhering to all award conditions. Consequences for noncompliance could include administrative or legal actions imposed on your organization by DOJ. A list of all mandatory OJP special conditions are available on the OJP website. Each FY20 JRI award has a minimum of 40 award conditions. Some award conditions may have been added by BJA to withhold funds until missing or incomplete information is provided and/or until the OJP, Office of the Chief Financial Officer, or OCFO, approves the budget. Please take the time to review and understand each of the award conditions and pay particular attention to withholding conditions. Your SPA will refer to these often. You should make sure all staff, as well as subrecipients involved with your funded project, have a copy of the grant award document and are familiar with all award conditions. As mentioned previously, there may be one or more withholding conditions on your award. The most common reason for a withholding condition are budget has not been cleared or approved by OCFO, or missing or deficient documents. The most frequent missing documents are disclosure of pending applications, also known as DOPA, disclosure of lobbying activities, also known as the SFLLL, and application attachments. If you haven't been contacted by your BJA SPA about missing documents and you have withholding conditions, reach out to your SPA and submit the documentation as soon as possible. Again, as a reminder, award funds cannot be obligated, expended, or drawn down until all withholding conditions have been resolved. We want to bring your attention to a very important award condition. All grant award administrators and financial managers must complete the online grants financial management training within 120 days of award acceptance. If this training requirement is not met, a withholding condition will be placed on your award and you will not be able to access award funds. The online training is self-paced and grant award administrators and financial managers are responsible for creating an account. Once the grant award administrators and financial managers complete the training, you must submit your certificate of training completion to your SPA. If you have any technical issues, please again contact your SPA. As it pertains to budget and financial information, recipients agree to read and comply with the financial and administrative requirements set forth in the current edition of the DOJ Grants Financial Guide, 2 CFR 200's Uniform Administrative Requirements, cost principles, and audit requirements for federal awards. In order to begin project activities, you must receive a cleared budget. All costs must be reasonable, allocable, and necessary to the project. You will work with your assigned SPA to clear the budget that is reviewed by OCFO. Budgets must conform to federal cost categories, such as A, personnel, B, fringe benefits, etc., have correct calculations, include only allowable cost, accurately identify subrecipients and contractors. We encourage you to print and or bookmark the DOJ Financial Guide. This is what I do, and it's very helpful. The latest version is from 2017 and is subject to revision. If you have any questions about your budget, reach out to your assigned SPA. Do not assume you have a cleared budget if you have not been contacted by your SPA. It is possible OCFO has not yet completed their review of your budget. Once you have a cleared budget and begin project activities, you will be able to submit drawdown requests, also referred to as payment or reimbursement requests. JRI awards follow the reimbursement payment process. Per the DOJ Financial Guide, recipient organizations should request funds based upon immediate disbursement or reimbursement requirements. Funds will not be paid in lump sum, but rather dispersed over time as project costs are incurred or anticipated. All drawdown requests should be timed to ensure the federal cash on hand is the minimum number for disbursement or reimbursements to be made immediately or within 10 days. If not spent or dispersed within 10 days, funds must be returned to the awarding agency. Fund requests from subrecipients create a continuing cash demand on award balances of the recipient. Recipients should keep in mind that idle funds in the hands of subrecipients will impair the goals of effective cash management. Grantees should develop written procedures for cash management of funds to ensure that federal cash on hand is kept at or near zero. DOJ periodically conducts financial reviews to ensure that this requirement is met. This slide includes the most common unallowable costs. Please pay particular attention to the prohibition on food, beverages, and trinkets. Please reach out to your SPA with any questions about costs. The proper determination of whether a pass-through entity is a subaward or a procurement contract is critical because significantly different requirements apply based on this determination. The substance of the relationship should be given greater consideration than the form of agreement between the prime recipient and the outside entity. If you delegate program activities to another entity, individual, consultant, or organization, that delegation will generally be considered a subaward. Most pass-through entities on your awards are programmatic and substantive, and therefore should be classified as subawards. In any OJP award in which the recipient entity proposes to collaborate or partner with another entity to accomplish its work, particularly when the OJP solicitation requires or encourages such a collaboration, an agreement by the recipient to pay the collaborator is very likely to be a subaward, as determined by federal grants administrative requirements, rather than a procurement contract under the OJP award. Specifically, program evaluators and research partners are award collaborators and therefore are to be classified as subawards. OJP designed a toolkit for grantees to help with this determination. The toolkit is available online. The JRI team knows that this can be different from other federal agencies. This determination should not be taken lightly. Please talk to your SPA if you have any questions. We would like to take a moment to emphasize that all procurement transactions must be conducted in a manner to provide the maximum intent practical, open and free competition. Grantees should follow their organization's procurement guidelines as long as they do not contradict federal regulations on procurement. And please refer to the DOJ Financial Guide and 2 CFR 200.317 through 200.326 for additional guidance. There are certain circumstances that may call for other than full and open competition. These circumstances may result in sole source contracting. Recipients may conduct non-competitive or sole source procurement when one or more of the following circumstances apply. The item or service is available only from one source. The public emergency for the requirement will not permit a delay resulting from competitive solicitation. Competition is determined inadequate after solicitation of a number of sources. Recipients must request and receive written approval from OJP via a grant award modification, or we call them GAMs now, prior to purchasing, obligating funds, or entering into a contract with award funds related to sole source procurements in excess of the simplified acquisition threshold currently at $250,000. Sole source contracting that does not exceed $250,000 may not need prior approval, but recipients should follow the OJP Financial Guide requirements. The recipient must submit a robust justification for use of a non-competitive approach and sole source checklist. Always talk to your SPA before beginning any sole source. I just want to highlight again that the current simplified acquisition threshold for sole sourcing is currently $250,000. You may see a different amount in the DOJ Financial Guide and the required grants training session. Therefore, please make a special note of this amount. For additional guidance on subawards and contracts, review the subaward toolkit, subaward checklist, and sole source justification fact sheets found on the OJP website. Now for the topic that many grantees really want to focus on, accessing funds. As mentioned earlier, you cannot access award funds until you have a cleared budget and all withholding conditions are resolved. Recipient organizations should request funds based upon immediate disbursement or reimbursement requirements. Drawdown requests should be timed to ensure that federal cash on hand is the minimum needed to disperse or reimburse to be made immediately or within 10 days. If not spent or dispersed within 10 days, funds must be returned to the awarding agency. Hopefully by this time, your organization has successfully set up an ASAP account. ASAP, or the Automated Standard Application for Payments, is a shared service provided by the Department of Treasury for grant payments. ASAP allows organizations receiving federal funds to draw funds securely through pre-authorized accounts established by the agency issuing the payment. All recipients must have an ASAP account to access grant funds. For questions about ASAP, please contact the ASAP Help Desk. Continuing on to grants award modifications. In Just Grants, grant award modifications, or GAMs, are used to update award details. GAMs replace the grant adjustment notices, or GANs, that were used in the former grants management system. GAMs cannot be approved if there are any delinquent financial or programmatic reports. There are 3 types of GAMs, one being programmatic, financial, and the other being project period extensions. Programmatic GAMs are used to update changes in project scope or to gain prior approval for changes with programmatic costs and activities as determined by the DOJ Financial Guide. Scope changes. They alter the programmatic activities, change the purpose of the project, change the project site, or change key staff support supporting the grant. Minor equipment substitutions are not scope changes. Financial GAMs are used to clear or modify an approved budget and seek approval for sole source procurements in excess of the simplified acquisition threshold, again, currently at $250,000. Budget modifications require the same level of detail as the budget that was originally approved and should include the OJP developed budget detail worksheet and accompanying narrative. You must include itemization and calculation. Essentially, make sure you show the math, or as I also say, show your work. Sole source scams should include all applicable documents with the required justification and the sole source checklist. They can be found in the OJP Financial Guide. Finally, project period extensions. These GAMs are used to extend the length of the funded award. Project period extension GAMs must be submitted no later than 30 days before the end of the award and require robust justification. Extensions are typically limited to one 12-month extension. The request should not focus on funds left on the award, but instead how much activity is still left to be accomplished. It should also include a time task of activities planned. If this is not the first request, it will be extremely difficult to extend and requires an extenuating circumstance, i.e. COVID-19, or weather impacting your awards activities being able to be completed, such as the breakout of tornadoes so many years ago. Instructions on how to submit GAMs are available on the Just Grants website under the training materials. If you need assistance submitting a GAM, contact your SPA. Although no longer a formal grant award modification, please note that prior approval of certain costs is still required and must be documented in your official grant file. Please contact your SPA with any questions. Let's move on to mandatory reporting requirements. All grantees are required to submit quarterly federal financial reports, or FFRs, quarterly performance measure updates, and semi-annual performance reports or progress reports. The due dates rarely change and will always be the 30th of the month. The FFR and progress report are submitted in Just Grants. Do not submit an FFR in ASAP. The performance measures are submitted in the Performance Metrics Tool, or PMT. You are required to submit a report even if there is no activity and no funds have been obligated, expended, or drawn down. Your first set of reports, both FFR and semi-annual performance report for your new awards, are due on January 30th. All FFR questions should be directed to OCFO customer service. If you have technical questions regarding semi-annual performance report submission, contact the Just Grants help desk. If you have programmatic questions, contact your SPA. Contact information for the help desk is provided at the end of the presentation. As you prepare to submit your first set of reports, here are some helpful tips. The FFR obligation should match performance activities reported in your corresponding progress report. In some cases, the grant award administrator and financial manager are different, so communication between the two is vital to ensure programmatic reports give a clear picture of corresponding financial obligations or expenditures. The FFR should report funds obligated and or expended, not drawn down amounts. An FFR must be submitted for every quarter, regardless of whether or not there were obligations or expenses. The semi-annual report should provide BJA SPAs an accurate snapshot of implementation. This is the good, the bad, the ugly. Please ensure to attach your PMT report to your performance report. Again, you must submit all reports, even if no activity occurred during the reporting period. PMT reports can be marked not operational, but provide an explanation as to why no activities occurred. The performance report created in the PMT must be attached to the Just Grants performance report in order to be complete. Narrative questions at the end of the PMT should be cumulative. Now I'd like to turn things off and hand things over to my teammate, Leslie Walker, to cover monitoring.
Thank you, Latanza. We will now talk about monitoring. BJA SPAs are required to conduct monitoring whether in person or virtually, as part of OJP's federally mandated requirement to conduct grant monitoring and oversight of the financial, administrative, and programmatic activities of grantees. The focus of the visit will be to assess and ensure compliance with the regulations, terms, and conditions for each grant under review. SPAs will examine the programmatic progress of each grant, validate information that has been reported, and provide technical assistance to recipients on grant management requirements. Activities during an in-person site visit will include observation of grant program activities and discussion of programmatic progress, as well as a review of the award file, grant policies and procedures, expenditure documents, performance measurement data collection and validation, and other documentation. Remote or enhanced programmatic desk reviews will cover the same items as an in-person visit without the observation of grant-funded activities. As mentioned earlier, the contractor or subrecipient determination is critically important because uniform guidance requires that recipients have written policies and procedures for making, managing, and monitoring subrecipients. The purpose of monitoring activities is to provide reasonable assurance that the subrecipient has administered the pass-through funding in compliance with the same laws, regulations, and the provisions of the award, and that the required performance goals are being achieved. You should review and provide your subrecipients with the language in 2 CFR 200.303 and 200.331. If you have subrecipients, your organization's post-award procedures must, 1, contain a risk-based approach for selecting subrecipients to monitor, a process for monitoring, a monitoring checklist that satisfies administrative, financial, and programmatic elements, a process for documenting findings in a report, and procedures for follow-up on issues for resolution. Your subrecipient policies and procedures should also include a process for closing out subawards. In addition, prime recipients of awards receiving $25,000 or more must report subawards and contracts within 1 month following subaward. FAQs, submission process, user guides, and online demos can be found at the link provided. We will now transition to closeout. When your award period is coming to an end, you will begin to receive notices that your award's end date is approaching and that you should start preparing for closeout. There are 2 types of closeout, standard and administrative. Standard closeouts are submitted by the grantee within 90 calendar days and after the grant's project end date. You will certify that all administrative, programmatic, and financial requirements have been met. All expenses must be obligated by the last day of the project period. Administrative closeouts are initiated by the system on the 91st day after the grant project period end date. At this point, award funds will automatically freeze and an administrative closeout notification will be sent to the grantee. Administrative closeouts occur when a grantee is unwilling, non-compliant, or unable to complete closeout requirements. Here are some additional resources and a few last-minute helpful tips and reminders. Keep your contact information up to date. Review your award conditions and take immediate action on any outstanding withholding award conditions. Contact your assigned SPA if you haven't been in contact. Please take a moment to review the help desk information for Just Grants, OCFO, and ASAP. If you need assistance on how to take any action in Just Grants, check out the training videos on the Justice Grants website. This final slide is the contact information for the BJA JRI team. And finally, turning it back over to Rachel to begin our Q&A session.
Thank you so much, Leslie. I believe Jessica has been monitoring the chat, so I will kick to Jessica and see if there are any questions.
Thank you, Rachel. So far, we haven't had anyone submit any questions, not directly to me. So I would just encourage any of the participants that if you have any questions about any of the material presented, please go ahead and send any of your questions directly to me, or just feel free to put them directly in the chat.
We're hearing none at the moment. I will just say,
I'm sorry, Rachel.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I do see one. Ms. Ramey from Tulsa says, could you expand on the FY20 reporting requirements for subrecipients?
I will hand that to the programs team.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep,
Yes,
we can hear you,
we can.
Latanza.
Yes, the FFATA, well, for the FFATA requirements, I was, Catherine, did you want to take this?
Sure. I had actually started talking and I was double muted again. This is becoming a thing. I apologize. So yeah, this is Kate. With regard to the FFATA reporting requirements, so this is for subrecipients. So as we highlighted in the training earlier, it really is important that you do that toolkit to determine if it's a contract versus a subrecipient. In most cases, it will be a subrecipient, which does then trigger those uniform guidance requirements of monitoring and holding accountable. In addition, it also requires the FFATA reporting if you are a recipient that receives more than $25,000. So the biggest thing here is to go to that link. So if you can go back on the slides to that monitoring slide, there is a link that provides FAQs. One more. I think it's one more. It might be two. There you go. This link, so at the very bottom, the last bullet, which again, this is recorded and I believe they're going to be sending you the slides as well. It provides you the user guide, the FAQs, online demos, and everything else. So prime recipients of awards of $25,000 or more must report on any subawards. So you're going to report on subawards and subcontracts that have $25,000 within 1 month following the subaward. So it's really important. This is a way that we ensure that that we're doing our due diligence and providing correct oversight and being good stewards of federal funds. So I would recommend that you go to the website, check out all of the guidance, and then if you have specific questions or clarification you need, our team, the JRI team, Leslie and Latanza, are happy to support. And if necessary, I'm happy to also jump on a call to provide any clarity. And I know Rachel on her end is also happy to support. So we all work collaboratively together.
Thank you. And Rachel, I see no more questions in the chat.
Great. Thank you, Kate, and thank you, Jessica. And I know this is a lot to take in for everyone. It's a lot of information. It may or may not be the excitement of a snowstorm where you live like it is for us here on the East Coast. So if you do have any questions that come up over the coming days and weeks, our contact information is here. Please do reach out to your SPA. Please reach out to me. Please reach out to Chris and Laura if you have any questions at any time, and we're happy to help as much as we can. So hearing no other questions, Chris, I believe we are good to wrap. Is that right?
Yes, I just wanted to note a couple of things. First of all, thank you all for the time. We hope you learned a little bit more about JRI, as well as the important points to remember as you start up administration of your award. The second point is, if you haven't done so, please be sure to reply to the email that I sent out requesting both your contact list for your JRI team, as well as trying to find a time to set up the introduction calls with BJA and our team as well. obviously we recognize we're right up against the holidays. So the first week of January or the second week of January is also good to give us some scheduling information on. After this webinar today, we'll send out the link to this recording in case you want to share it with any other members of your team that weren't able to make it today, or look at the slides more closely. We'll send a PDF of the slides as well. Outside of that, I just wanted to give Laura a chance for any parting comments before we sign off for today.
Just thank you very much for your time. We look forward to working with you, and happy holidays to everyone.
Great. Thank you all. Have a wonderful afternoon.